morning everyone, welcome to our latest game. We're going to upscale a bit. Our recent few games in Germany in 1813 have been quite small scale games, and we will be coming back to that in a few weeks' time to come to the conclusion of that game. But we're going to do something different now. This is a scenario I found in an old edition of Wargames Illustrated from about 2013, 2014 I think, and describes a what-if scenario set at the time of the Battle of Salamanca. So in the Battle of Salamanca, the two armies, you may be aware, spent many days, I believe, marching parallel to one another. And this particular scenario actually poses a bit of a what-if. The British 1st and Light Division spent much of the battle on the hills east of Salamanca and contributed really little directly to the fight. So with a little creativity, this is a what-if scenario that sees the men of the 1st and Light Divisions taking in the men of Foy's division, who spent the battle sitting opposite them and later in the conflict actually went to try and shore up the French retreat. So this is an earlier what-if scenario, and it's hopefully quite a dynamic one. So if we look at the forces we got on the table, we've got 3 brigades of French. We've got a 3rd brigade here, which is just entering the table, 4 battalions of line infantry. We have a 2nd brigade, another 4 battalions, 2 of light and 2 of line. You can see the light at the front in the predominantly darker trousers. And they're supported by a foot artillery battery. We've got a small brigade of light cavalry, 2 regiments of hussars, and then we have our leading brigade again of 2 battalions of light troops and 2 battalions of line. I will be using the 1st battalion of the light regiments as veterans. All the other troops will be regulars. And facing off against them we have the Allied troops. So in the lead we have elements of the Light Division. Don't quite have all the right units for the scenario, we've got most of them. We've got the, I think, let's just check, yeah, that's the 52nd Light closest to us, and the 44th Essex. And we had a battalion of Cacadors actually in the scenario, but I've substituted them for another battalion of the Light. So we've got the Glasgow Light Battalion there as the 3rd battalion in that brigade. And there you've got a skirmish screen supported by a company of the 60th Rifles. I'm using my 90th Rifles figures for them. In the centre, we've got 4 regular British battalions. And in the rear, we have 2 battalions of British Guards and 2 battalions of KGL, bringing up the rear of their formation. Everyone on both sides is in march column. And their objectives, there are 4 objectives in the game. We have occupation of what is meant to be a church, or I'll use this farm building. Occupation of that building at the end of the game. Control of the exit route to the south, which will take them into the conflict at the main Battle of Salamanca. And then each one of these formations is carrying some supplies. Water, essential for fighting in the hot Spanish sun. So capturing the enemy supplies will also gain you a victory point. So there are 4 up for grabs. Okay, so we'll do some close-ups of some of our troops. This is the light regiment of cavalry, which you've seen before. These are some of my newly painted hussars on the table again today. We have a shot of our light troops, both the hussars you've just seen, and these are Perez. The hussars are all plastic, these are all Perez metals. GMB flags, these have got yellow and red detail on the Fortishers uniforms. And between them we've got our limbered horse artillery battery, and then some line troops. So all the brigades are essentially the same. Again, these are Perez, G&B flags. Right, let's take a look at the Allies. These are painted, these ones, over the summer. We've got some KGL. These are periplastics. I went through a phase of doing periplastics. And then we've got 2 battalions of guards. Again, GMB flags and periplastics, and you can there see the supply wagon. That'll be one of the objectives for the game. And we've got some of the Perry metals, 4 battalions of British. With their limbered foot artillery battery there. And then finally our light troops. The Highland Light and the 52nd Oxford Light and the 44th Essex. And our divisional commander, keeping an eye on the French. Okay, we'll crack on with ADCs and roll for the initiative. We're going to have a bonus ADC for the French in this game, given Foy's command ability, and we'll see how that plays through. Okay, let's roll for ADCs and start the game. Right, French do well. They get 4 ADCs to start. That should have been 3 dice. 3 dice? No, it is 4 dice for the French, because they have their light cavalry brigade on, so they will actually get 5 ADCs because they get their 1 bonus. And the Allies at this stage only have 1 ADC. I'll roll for activation. So given the preponderance of objectives at the far end of this table, the table's about 10 foot long, so they've got about 5 or 6 feet for the front of these columns to reach the exit point onto the southern end of the battlefield and get towards the church. We've given a forwards order, or we will be trying to give a forwards order to our front brigade. We've put a re-roll on our light cavalry brigade to get them again to move up quickly, and then also a re-roll on the brigade following that. So try and get quite a lot of movement from the French. For the Allies, gone for the same tactic. We've simply used our 1 ADC to put a re-roll on our light brigade. Alright, I'll move on with activation. Okay, so good news for the French, all their brigades have activated, and we did get the forwards order off on our front unit. For the Allies, good news for them, their light brigade has also activated, but unfortunately the guards and the KGL to the rear are hesitant this turn. So we'll roll for initiative. It'll be a -1 for the Allies. They roll a double 1, so the French will indeed have initiative. Let's just roll for the value of that forwards order, and 28 mil, it's 3d6. So they get a bonus 9-inch movement on that front French brigade. Alright, so French have initiative. Charges first, for which I don't think there will be any, then movement for the French in turn 1. So at the end of movement in turn 1, we can see the 95th Rifles occupying this building, and we've got the French columns starting to approach it, with the artillery moving forward and their supply wagons, so they're definitely putting all their objectives at the centre of the table. In the centre, the Hussars have started to deploy. They do have a reserve cavalry brigade as well, potentially to try and seize the road exit, but they need to expend the ADCs to bring that on. Otherwise, the rest of the French columns have just continued to march onto the table. For the Allies, the Light Brigade has started to deploy. Its 1st Battalion taking advantage of its veteran status to move up and then deploy into line. The other English brigades have continued to move forward. The hesitant brigade, we realised, was not too much of a disadvantage because they're not actually moving any closer to the French troops at this time, so they have moved up to the left, and then the guards, being veterans, have deployed into line as well, so they can face off and potentially create something of a threat. But they'll continue moving forward. Alright, no real exchange of fire this turn, and a couple of skirmish shots, but they didn't cause any casualties. We'll move on with turn 2. Taking a shot from the Allied side of the table, the Allies have had terrible luck. Yeah, terrible luck, and they've managed to have all their brigades hesitant. That's because they risked all their ADCs on bringing on their cavalry reserve with a reroll. So let's do that roll live. No, hesitant. Whoa, they nearly had a hesitant, but that just toppled over onto a 5. So the Allies can deploy their cavalry reserve. For the French, no reserves this turn, no exceptional orders, but they did use their rerolls, and they have all of the French brigades active. So we'll do the initiative test. Unfortunately for the Allies, they are -3 because of those 3 hesitant Allied brigades. Mind you, they've rolled outstandingly. They've rolled an 11, so the Allies will have initiative, but all brigades are hesitant. We'll start with movement for the Allied cavalry. So by the end of the second turn, quite a lot of movement. We've got Allied dragoons here, and light dragoons have arrived on the table edge, to seize the southern exit on behalf of the British and reinforce their 95th Rifles, who are holed up here in the top of this building. The Light Brigade has continued to deploy and move forward to protect the flank again of that building. In the centre, the French have taken advantage of the slow Allied deployment and have pushed their hussars forward onto the ridge. So they now hold this central hill, and they're supporting that with a brigade that looks like it's moving up in support. And down here, the brigade that was approaching the building from the north continues to move forward, and it's started to deploy its artillery battery to potentially put pressure on the British. On the rest of the positions, the French have started to form line on the right here in support again of another deploying artillery battery, which is facing off against the Guards and the KGL. I think the French are looking more to do a delaying and pinning action to keep those excellent British troops tied up, rather than actually looking forward to push forward and attack. Right, that's looks like it's going to be it. I'm not going to fire the French artillery this turn as it's deploying, and there are too many penalties. None of the Allied artillery has deployed, and we'll do the exchange of skirmisher fire. Back in a sec. Okay, let's roll for ADCs for turn 3. The French already get one, so that's the dice on the table. Both sides have 4 brigades deployed, so the French get 2 more ADCs. The Allies only get 1 ADC, and the French still have 1 off-table brigade, which they also get an ADC for. So 4 ADC for the French, and 1 for the Allies. Alright, let's see how we deploy those. So an impressive performance from the Allies in turn 3, so everything's gone active, which is really good, with only 1 ADC. They put a reroll on the heavy cavalry brigade, but that one went off anyway, and as did all the Allied brigades without the needs for any rerolls. The French put rerolls on everything. They needed 3 rerolls and indeed failed one of those. So this brigade here, unfortunately, that's supporting the French push in the centre, is hesitant. Let's roll for initiative. The Allies will put +1 versus the French. French have 8, Allies have 7, but the French are -1, so that takes them down to 7. It's a draw, and the Allies had initiative last turn, so the Allies get to move first. Alright, let's start with Allied charges. Okay, so not surprisingly, the French have decided to charge. We decided not to be too greedy. We could have charged both units of light cavalry into 2 of the line battalions facing them. However, we can only get the flank charge off against the 52nd Light here. So we've gone for that and gone in to provide support for that attack, rather than swinging to the right and looking to charge one of these battalions in line. We weren't more than 9 inches away, so the Allies will get a chance to form square. So we'll do that charge reaction now. Okay, so we've got the French hussars charging in against the flank of the 52nd line. I think in pretty much all the scenarios I've seen, the 52nd are graded as elite, so this will give them a benefit in this test. So they'll be testing at +2, but they have been flanked, so that will be simply +1. And they are in line, and they are a large battalion, so that's -2. So this test will actually be at -1. They're on a 9. That's adjusted by -1 goes to an 8, so they will pass that test. Right, just check the maths. So they're on elite +2, they are flanked, and they're charged in line, so that's -3, so that's a net result of -1. -1 off 9 is 8, and they need 7 to change formation. So the 52nd see the cavalry coming and have a chance to react. They form square. Alright, we'll do the charge results. This will be a +2 to the Allies because they are square as cavalry. They need, well, don't need that. They get a 5, that goes up to a 7. French get a 7, so the French will bounce off, and both sides will take 1 casualty. Okay, so the centre looks much better for the Allies now. The French cavalry have charged up the hill and then pulled back. So now more normal movement for the Allies. All their brigades are active. Okay, movement's complete for turn 3, and the British cavalry have now seized the road, so the British now hold 2 of the objectives, so they have 3 victory points to 1. To the flank of their objective building, they're now starting to get into position to deploying the Light Brigade. In the centre, The battalions that were threatened by the cavalry have moved up and starting to occupy the ridge. But again, they've suffered a bit of indecision and they're pulling their artillery battery back, potentially to the rearmost hill, rather than taking the dominant position in the centre. The elite Allied troops on the left have started to move forward, and the French, in response, have also started to deploy their infantry battalions forward. Their artillery battery is deployed and ready to open fire. Here, all the battalions have moved into attack column because they were hesitant, so they took the opportunity to reform. And down here, although our battery is masked by our own troops, it's taken the opportunity to swing to the left a bit, so it's potentially got that cavalry threat within range. And for the Allies, we have deployed our horse artillery. So it'll look like the British will also be opening fire as we move on to the firing phase of turn 3. Okay, so the Allied horse artillery battery here in the lee of the building is going to open fire. Unfortunately, the riflemen are slightly out of range. So they did deploy this turn, so that will be -2, but they are firing at effective range against this column down here. So they will get a bonus casualty dice. So let's see how they do. This test is at -2. 7 -2 is 5, and 1 on the casualty dice is nothing. So at effective range 5, that is 1 casualty against this French column. Okay, we've done the skirmisher fire here in the centre. No results no, there was a result from that. We caused 2 casualties on the French. That was the only casualty from skirmisher fire this round, so the French have lost 1 base. The advantage the British have got by having the 60th Rifles deployed in with the British battalions is allowing them to have a slight edge in the skirmisher war. Okay, so the French Divisional artillery battery here is also going to open fire. These guys are firing at effective range and they're firing against the Guards battalion. They will get 1 extra combat dice. Oh no, they won't, because they're not firing at a column. But they do pretty well. They roll a 5 and a 5. That is a 10 at an effective range. That's 3 casualties against the Allies and a discipline test. They will also get bounced through at that battalion deployed in line behind. And they do 1 casualty against the 2nd Guards battalion as a result of the bounce through. Otherwise, we've done the skirmisher fire down here, and neither side inflicted any casualties on the opposing skirmisher screen. So that's it for turn 3. We'll move on to turn 4. Alright, so pretty good riling at the beginning of turn 4. Allies and the French both got 4 ADCs. The Allies have pulled off artillery assault on their horse artillery battery, and they've activated their cavalry brigade, and indeed they've been successful in activating all other Allied brigades once again this turn. For the French, not bad. They use 3 of their ADCs to get a reroll to bring their reserve cavalry on, and all their brigades are active apart from the far right-hand flank, which has gone hesitant, which is probably alright from a French perspective, as they're really just trying to occupy those Allied troops. Right, some serious thinking needed for the French here. They're not in a great position, but let's see who's got initiative. In turn 4, the French have initiative. That cavalry has the chance to arrive. Okay, so quite a lot of movement this turn. The French dragoons here have moved onto the table, both brigades supporting one another, supported by another small unit of hussars. They're facing off against the British heavy dragoons. Neither side charged, as both were out of range this turn, but it looks like we're going to have some cavalry combat as they go into action next turn. French columns here have now approached the road, and their first objective of the building held by the 95th Rifles, but they will have to stand off against some artillery fire. They've moved their skirmish screen across to cover them. In the centre, the French hussars are still threatening the British lines, but the British have decided to form from square back into line again to reduce their exposure to artillery fire, and they'll have another go at forming square if they're charged next turn. The French columns here in the centre are now moving into attack position to try and capture this hill and execute that move before the Allied artillery has had a chance to deploy in the centre. That deployment looks like it'll take place next turn, and the French will start receiving British artillery fire over on the right, and the British elite battalions continue to advance towards that French line. Let's see how far it goes in turn 4. Okay, well, the Allies have continued to win the skirmisher fire, although they mainly seem to be using harsh language rather than musket balls, so very few casualties again. But again, a couple of more casualties on the French side as the effect of having the rifles intermingled with the Allied skirmish screen is paying off. Okay, so first important shot of the game will be, or of the return, will be a volley here from the artillery battery, horse artillery battery by the building. This is firing at close range now against a target in column. So that'll be +1 combat dice for the Allies. Let's see how we do. Not a great shot. They roll a 3 and a 3 on their combat dice, so at close range. Sorry, that's a 4 and nothing on the casualty dice. So at close range, that's half a casualty, which does translate. So that is a second casualty on this infantry brigade, and we will get bounced through against this one behind, but nothing. Powder clearly a bit damp, and no great effect from that volley this turn. All right, now let's move over to the French. We've got a battery firing here at effective range against the guards again, and they will be bounced through. So I'll roll the bounce through at the same time. That'll be on the blue dice. Hey, they're all blue dice, but they are. That's not very useful, is it? That'll be the bounce through. We rolled an 11. I think the 4 was the last one to stop, or certainly that's one in my head, the bounce through dice. So that's 11, that's remarkably good at effective range and a bounce through casualty. So at effective range, another great volley this turn. That's another 3 casualties on the guards and a discipline test. I'll be back to do the discipline test. So on the guards, discipline test is normally at +2, but it'll be +1 because they've now taken 6 casualties. Clearly the rationavino for the artillery crews down here is doing them a world of good in keeping that artillery rate of fire up. Alright, they've rolled an 8. They will be fine. That translates into a 9, so they stay in formation. That's firing, I think, done in turn 4. Let's move on to turn 5. Okay, let's roll ADCs for turn 5. The French already get their bonus 1, and they've got 4 ADCs this turn. The Allies have got 3. Let's think about how we want to deploy those. Okay, given the Allies are holding the objectives at the moment, they're content to stay relatively cautious, so they're going for artillery assault with their 3 ADCs. Everyone else will have to take potluck. For the French, we have put infantry assault against this brigade with a reroll because we need to capture this building, and we won't be able to do that without the benefits of being able to go in with more than 1 battalion. We've also used our 4th ADC to give a reroll to our cavalry because we really need those to go active and be able to charge. Right, I'll roll for activation and then be back with initiative. So on this left flank, everyone is active, so will be plenty of action over here this turn. So we move across to the centre. The French light cavalry is active, but unfortunately this infantry brigade has gone hesitant, but as indeed have their opponents on the hill. On the right flank, the other French brigade was also remaining hesitant, but the elites for the Allies are moving forward. So the French are on -2, the Allies are on -1. French had initiative last turn. Okay, Allies get 7, French get 6, so the Allies get initiative for turn 5. Okay, so we've done the charges. The British Dragoons have charged in against the French Dragoons, so we've got Dragoon against Dragoon, and we'll see how that combat turns out. Against the building, the French columns were in range, so they have charged up to the building. We've still got to do defensive fire, so we'll see how that plays through from both the building and the battery next to it. And that's all the charges for the turn. Then we just have done normal movement just to speed up there a bit, as there's no charges going on this side. The French hussars continue to put pressure on the Allied lines, but we're waiting for the French columns to move up so we can try and do a combined arms attack for once and see if we can be more effective from the French than I usually manage to pull off. And over here, the French lines are under pressure. The British continue to advance relentlessly towards the French positions, so we'll see how well they can stave off the British attack by the KGL and the elite British Guards. And then on the hill, although the British brigade on the hill was hesitant, the artillery has taken the opportunity to unlimber, still behind its protective screen of infantry who will move out of the way next turn. So that's all the movement. We'll now do defensive fire from the building and from the British artillery. Okay, so three shots from the building. That's 1 casualty, and you put the casualty of, if you've got odd numbers, or you put the, how does it work? you put over 50% of the casualties onto the main attacking unit. So that one casualty all goes on the main attacking unit. We'll now do the defensive artillery fire. This is at close range and it's firing at columns, so they get a extra dice. So they do get a casualty from the extra dice, and then we get an 8. At close range is 3 casualties, plus 1 is 4, so that'll be 2 each on the 2 attacking French battalions here. And just to clarify, this battalion here did actually do a charge. It did a charge against the Allied skirmisher screen, hence the reason it's bounced back all the way back there. It did pass its discipline test, so I do also have to roll the defensive volley from that screen as it volleys before it pulls back. So I'll do that in a second, but we'll apply those casualties to this charge first. Okay, and of course remembering that charges against buildings automatically go in, so they will be straight into that formed built-up area, and we'll be onto the melee section next. So we will fire for the defensive volley from that Allied skirmish screen against the other French battalion. Wow, what a roll! That's 4 casualties, pretty good against that attacking battalion. Yep, and I have checked, and that is not a destiny test. Because although I have rolled a double, indeed a 666, it's only from volleys, artillery fire and melee, not from skirmisher fire. So we will mark up the casualties and then we'll be on to firing. Okay, so we'll fire the Glasgow Light. They don't get a bonus because they're not firing at a column within 3 inches, but this will be a superior volley. Being British, that's a 5, that's 1 further casualty against this attacking French column. That's all the firing for this part of the battlefield. Okay, so the French artillery will see if it can roll another astounding score against the attacking guards. The red dice will be the bounce through against the second battalion. We'll check it to see whether it's at effective range, because bounce through, I'm not sure if it happens at close range. I think potentially it does anyway. So that's a 7. So assuming that's at close range, that's 2 casualties and a discipline test. First one will be against the skirmish screen. Okay, so taking the discipline test on the guards battalion, this will be a +1. A 6 plus 1 is 7, they remain formed. We've done the rest of the skirmisher fire. That's the all the artillery and volley fire for this turn. All the artillery and volley fire for this turn. We'll move on to turn 6. Apologies, I got that completely wrong. We've got lots to do still over on this side of the battlefield. We've got to do the melee combat here, and we didn't actually do the charge reactions for this cavalry. So sorry, complete muck up there. It's always challenging when you're playing solo. You get carried away with the spirit of the game, and there I was going left to right, and I'd omitted some really important parts of the game on this flank. Really lucky it doesn't look like anything will actually interfere with one another, certainly on this turn. So let's do the charge reactions, as that would be first of the 2 charging sets of cavalry. Okay, so we're going for the same options. We're attaching our generals to the right hand combat. The French are attaching to the right hand one because keeping support for their attack against the building is critical. So they're deploying there, and the British are doing that to match them. And then we're going to attach our re-rolls, both of them, to the same combat. Right, so we'll start with the left-hand combat first. So it'll be +2 to the British because they are veterans and the French Dragoons are regulars, and the French Dragoons are campaign cavalry. So the French get an 8, the British get a 7, +2 to the British makes it 9, so that is 1 to 2, a melee and a countercharge and melee. So the right-hand combat moves into the melee phase. Sorry, the left-hand combat will move into melee. So we'll have the same +2, but with rerolls for this combat, as the 2 generals cancel one another out. Again, another very close roll, exactly the same. So the Allies win by 2. So that would be a straight melee. Is anyone going to try a reroll? I think with 4s and 5s, we're pretty content with those rolls, and we're going to go into melee. So this one also will go into the melee phase. Okay, so both of these combats will be a straight roll-off. Both sides get the heavy cavalry bonus of +2. The French are 1 morale grade lower, so the Allies get a +1 for that, but they lose 1 for being a small unit. So both sides get 7 dice. Let's see how the left-hand combat fares first, if I can get all of these dice into my hand. Here we go. Let's do combat. Alright, 4s or more to cause a casualty. We have 4 casualties for the British Dragoons and only 3 for the French. So that is for cavalry versus cavalry. The winner takes the ground and the losers retreat, and they will retreat off the table. Okay, I'm rolling the second combat. See if the French can do any better. No, that does not look good. French only 2 cause 2 casualties, Allies cause 3. It'll be the same result. The Dragoons will have a chance to fall back behind the Hussar regiment, so they may not drop off the table, but they also have to retreat, and that will be 2 retreat results in a turn and a Falter test on this French cavalry brigade. Okay, so this is going to be a tough ask for the French as well, so not feeling too hopeful here. We are veterans, so that helps, but we lose a dice for attacking a built-up area, and we lose another dice because we have taken 4 casualties on the way in. So Allies have got 5 dice. See how we do. Yep, the Allies win by 2, and the losers retreat once more. Okay, so that is the end of turn 5, and things have taken a significant turn for the worse for the French. What was a very balanced and even fight going in, but a tough ask against the building. Although they survived the defensive artillery fire pretty well, losing those 2 cavalry skirmishers where the result was a dice off. And at 50-50 odds was unfortunate. Being thrown back from the building, perhaps not such a surprise. We'll need to do some more softening up with the French artillery if we're going to have another go, so perhaps time to withdraw and do some artillery fire and see if we can stabilise our left flank. Alright, we'll start with ADCs on turn 6. Okay, turn 6, we're taking a bit of a risk here. Well, the Allies are using their 2 ADCs, they only rolled 2 this turn, one to put reroll on this heavy cavalry so they can try and wipe the French cavalry from the board. But no artillery assault this turn against their battery on that flank. And they've given themselves a reroll on the Guards Brigade because they want to start executing their attack against this right flank. The French had 6 ADCs, which was great. We need to do 2 for our Falter test. And we've put 1 on this infantry brigade on the right, go with artillery assault to try and slow down the Guards attack. And we're not putting any rerolls on any of our units in the centre, apart from this right-hand brigade, which will also have a reroll. So let's start with our Allies. So the heavy cavalry does have a reroll, which is why dice was by it. They've gone active. The light brigade is active. The middle brigade is active, and then a reroll for the Allies. Don't need it. Their Guards Brigade has gone active. So all Allied brigades are active. Now let's roll for the French. We've got a reroll to try and get artillery assault off. We do get artillery assault off on this brigade. I'll just get a marker before I forget what I've done. Okay, rolling for the brigade in the centre. They are hesitant. Rolling for my cavalry brigade. They are active. Rolling for my main attacking brigade. This is hesitant. No, it's gone off as active, so that's good. And now, really importantly, my Falter test. This one does have a reroll. We roll a 3. Let's see what a 3 does. Faltering brigades for a line brigade. It's not going to be good enough. It's retire. All brigades within 9 inches of a formed enemy must immediately step back, so all my cavalry would disappear off the board. So we might as well go for it. We'll go for a reroll. And we get a 6! Obey orders. That's good news. A little bit of fight left in my dragoons. Okay, let's roll for initiative. French are -1. Allies have initiative. There'll be some charges going in as we start turn 6. Okay, so as we expected, turn 6, another eventful turn. The British heavy cavalry have charged in against the dragoons. Sorry, the Hussars. They can't get round them to get at the dragoons that are reforming behind them, but they'll probably crash through. We'll see what happens. Across in the centre, the French decided not to charge into the Allied line there, given the supporting artillery and the fact they've already taken quite a few casualties, so they'll have a go at reforming and consider what they want to do next. Still no opportunity of pressure in the centre for the French, but they haven't been able to get a combined arms attack off yet because they can't get their cavalry and their infantry to coordinate. And on the right hand side, the Allies have crashed into the French line. We'll have defensive volleys musketry and artillery ripping into those Allied lines. See if we can stop that attack. An important turn on the right for the French and on the left for the Allies. Unfortunately for the French, this is +6 for the Allies because the French are unformed, the Allies are heavy cavalry, the Allies have got generals attached. Let's see how we do. A 9 plus 6 is a 15 against 7. They have one more by more than 6. They will break the French hussars and charge on. Not quite so good for the Allies, only +4, but they do have a reroll and they have 2 attacking brigades. So we've got a 4 with one brigade and a 6 with the other. We'll stay with the 6 against the 7 and we will reroll 3 for our support. That's good. That's an 8 against a 7. So that's a win by 5. 5 plus. Attacker melees with the LAN and defender melees unformed. It's going to be a tough melee for those French dragoons. Now we've got some defensive volleys for the French here. They did quite well. Their skirmish screen caused a couple of casualties as it fell back behind its own lines. So we'll now do the French defensive fire. They do get an extra column. No, they don't, because they're not firing at columns, they're firing at lines. So it'll be a straight roll off. This will be a standard volley for the battalion on the right. Wow, that's a destiny test. That's a great result. And that is 5 casualties and a discipline test against the KGL battalion. Okay, let's do the destiny roll for the French. They're all a 6. They recover 1 casualty or melee with a LAN, so I think we'll go with a LAN as there may be a charge going off here. And then let's do the discipline test on the KGL, so let's get +1. They roll a 7, they roll an 8 rather, even at -1 that's a 7, so they can still complete their charge. Let's do the charge test then for the KGL. Alright, let's do the charge results. So we've both attached our generals to the line being attacked by the guard and to the guard itself, because clearly the general would want to be with the guard. So the KGL attack goes in without the support of its brigadier, but neither are the opposing French. So this will be +4 to the French. They roll an 8 against a 4. The British do have a reroll. They roll a 9. The French have a reroll. They roll an 11. 11 plus 4, 15 against 9. They win by 6. That's going to be a good result for the French. Alright, so great performance by the French there. They've thrown back the KGL. And now let's do the defensive volley for the battalion here. Rubbish, no effect. And then the defensive volley, or the shrapnel from the supporting artillery. Not very good. That's a 6 at close range.
That's very bad.
French could have done with some better rolls there. Close range of 6 is 2 casualties against the guard, so that will do something against this combat result. So we'll move on to charge results. Alright, doing the charges down here. Both of us are supported, so we both get a reroll, and the French are on +1 because the British, although they're elites, have taken plenty of casualties. French roll a 5. You get a reroll, Charlie? You going to reroll?
Yep.
You get a 4. I will reroll my 2. You got a 6. And it was how much to me? +1. So that takes me to a 7. And what did you get, Charlie?
I got a 3 when I rolled and I got a 1, so just 4.
A 4 against a 7. So the French win by 3. Alright, so the Allies have been thrown back on this flank, so the French right is holding firm at the moment and looks able to potentially hold off this threat and may be able to advance towards the Allied objective there in the background. In the centre it's still stalemate. The French haven't been able to do their combined arms attack they're wishing to, and let's now move over and we'll do the hand-to-hand combat down here where I think the rest of the French cavalry is doomed. Alright, let's do the hand-to-hand combat, Charlie. So, to no great surprise, Charlie's won this combat. He caused 5 casualties. He had 2 lots of 7 dice. The French only had 1 lot of 6 dice, so they only caused 3. So it's 1 by 2. I retreat, and the cavalry brigade of the French is now wiped out. First brigade destroyed to the Allies. Right, let's do a recap where we are halfway through the game. So we're at the end of... Oh no, we're at the end of charges, aren't we? We had done normal movement in turn 6. No, we've just done charges. So I'll just do normal movement for the Allies. Alright, here we go at the beginning of turn 7, so we've got to roll for ADCs in a second. Charlie's taking a more defensive posture, so his units have been thrown back or are pulling back towards the hill line. He's decided he doesn't want to try and break this French brigade, and that might be good news because he has taken exceptionally heavy casualties from the French artillery, and that was some great volleying by the French on the right. So that's looking fairly secure for Charlie, but the French might press forward there now. There is the ammunition wagon for them to go for. Here in the centre, it's still stalemate. Charlie's put his front battalion into square as a precautionary move. And over here, Charlie's firing line is now opening up, and he has his cavalry around the French flank. So this is going to be a challenge for the French over here. Right, let's roll for ADCs in turn 7. Okay, so everything's active apart from, unfortunately for me, my right-hand French brigade. Clearly that throwing back the British Guard has exhausted them, and they're having to recharge their batteries before they act again. So they are hesitant, so I'm at -1 for my initiative roll. I got 5.
I got 8.
Okay, allies have initiative in turn 7. Charges to declare. Okay, so we've done charges. This is going to be a decisive turn. Charlie's charged in here with his dragoons against the rear of that French infantry column. The rest of that brigade, which is on infantry assault orders, has decided to bypass the building, charged his artillery battery and his Glasgow lights with the support. Over here, his hussars have charged the another light battalion, and over here my hussars charged another light battalion. My infantry unfortunately can't join with cavalry in an assault, so I can't actually charge that square this turn. So we've charged over here against that infantry battalion. So we've got some defensive volleys to do. Charlie, over to you. Okay, so I'm on -2, and I go down to 1.
You go to minus something.
No, 3 minus 2 is 1. And what have you got, Charlie?
Oh yeah. I have 7 plus 3, so that is 9. Yeah, 10.
10. So you win by more than 6. So you, I think, disperse me. Okay, so Charlie, you can charge on 3d6.
Oh, I definitely made it.
9. I'm not sure you will. You're going to try and go into that other infantry battalion?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the back of it.
Alright, so Charlie didn't quite get enough of a charge on to go to the back of this column, but this assault looks in dire trouble now. Alright, Charlie, let's do your defensive fire from your artillery battery against the attacking French column. Close range, what are you going to get?
Ooh,
8. And you get 1 combat dice as well.
Okay, I'll draw this one.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No, it doesn't do anything. Okay, so 8 at close range is 3 casualties and a discipline test
Okay,
on that column. Okay, so Charlie's also got a casualty from the building, from the defensive garrison, who can do passing fire, so that takes it up to 4 casualties. So this will be a test at -1. They roll a 6, so that's a 5, so they go unformed. This charge is unlikely to succeed. Alright, let's go. -5, unfortunately, for the French. I roll a 2. You roll a 6, Charlie.
7 total.
7, okay, against... what did I get, Charlie? -5, so I got 2. So you win by 5. Attacker retires and takes 1 casualty. Defenders stand. Okay, Charlie, let's do your charge down here. You've got a defensive volley. You've got to do your skirmisher fallback first, so roll with that. 7. They fall back. They can fire 4 dice. What are you going to fire at? You have to fire at them, actually. You can't fire at cavalry in the open.
So get a dice from here. Nothing.
Nothing. Move them behind the infantry battalions.
They had just gotten up and now they're just being pulled back again.
And then a defensive volley, and you get a combat dice as well on top. Only a 3, that won't do anything, and 2, nothing from your volley. Alright, let's do the charge result. You are veterans, so you get +1. Otherwise, it's just a straight roll off. I've got a reroll, I get a 6.
I've got 10.
And I get 8. You've got 10, you have got a reroll if you want it. I wouldn't worry about that. You've won by 2. So it's -2, so I stop and volley. So I do 1 dice, which does do 1 casualty against you. Alright, now I've got 2 charges against these 2 squares. Start with my cavalry. 5, I'm not going to break your square with a 5.
Oh, I'm going to try and get a double 6 though, at least.
Yeah. 8. No, okay, so we'll both take a casualty there. And then against the other square, I get a 7. Again, I'm not going to break your square. No, okay, we both take a casualty and I fall back from both those squares. Right, and then for the final charge, another defensive volley, Charlie.
6, that's just a casualty, I think.
Yeah, for a superior volley is 1 casualty, yeah.
Okay, you're on 3.
Alright, so that'll be nothing on the charge result, so straight charge. I roll a 3.
It's so bad. I've got 6.
6. Yeah, you've won by 3. So I will not charge home. A -3. I retire and take 1 casualty. Alright, Charlie, yeah, firing your artillery. What are you going to fire at? That battalion there? I think it's the closest threat.
Yeah, and also the weakest.
Long range.
Nothing.
No, nothing from that. Any other artillery? You've fired that in the charges. You fired all of those. None of the infantry battalions are in range. You got a skirmish shot from over there.
1 dice.
Yeah, doesn't do anything. All right.
Oh no, they're 94 rifles. They get +1.
They do, so you get 2 dice.
Nothing.
Still nothing. All right, down here, I'm going to fire my skirmishers at the building. Do a casualty on the 95th Rifles. Don't think they've taken any in the game so far. And then I'm going to fire my artillery into you at close range. Oh, that's quite nice. That's a 9. A bit of pleasure at least. Close range 9. That's 3 casualties and a discipline test. So that's a discipline test at -1. Charlie.
Yeah. Unformed.
What did you get?
The back one
What
got
did
a
you get?
6.
A 6. Okay.
That is fine because I can still hit everyone else in the rear or
It
flank.
was 3 casualties, wasn't it? So I'll mark up the 3 casualties. Okay, firing this battery at effective range against Charlie. Well, that's quite good. That's an 8. I thought it was going to be higher, but it's not. That is 2 casualties against the front guard battalion.
Ooh.
What are they on now?
They're on 12. They're gone.
No,
But
they're
it's a
not. They're
large.
15, so they're large. So it's still just about in there. Firing my skirmishers at yours. No, nothing from those.
Were my
That's
skirmishes a Zorb one?
No. I can see more than enough of that big unit. I think that's fine. All right, that's it. So we've got that's it for turn 7. We'll start turn 8, but I think we're pretty close to calling the game. All right, all Charlie's brigades are active. My right-hand brigade finally has gone active, but unfortunately this one in the centre has gone hesitant yet again. So the ability of me to actually attack Charlie's centre is really weak.
Yeah, for this Volta test, I think it's the opposite. You don't want to stay where you are, because I'll just be able to charge in the rear and take out 2.
Yeah, but I think I'm effectively surrounded. So if I fail this test,
you just have to stay there.
I'm wiped out, I think. All right, let's see. I've got a reroll. I get obey orders. My gosh, remarkable. So Charlie won initiative, and needless to say, his cavalry has charged into the rear of this French brigade. He's also charged in with his elites in the front. I think it's pretty much all over. We'll do these charge results and just see where this flank ends up. Okay, so -5, -6, -7, because I'm unformed as well.
I win by 5.
How much have you rolled? 5?
Oh, I'm on 5, you're on -1.
You win by 6, so you wipe me out. And you get to charge on.
That's one of the first times.
Roll 3d6, Charlie.
3 dice.
Okay, so remember that
10.
you've rolled 10 extra.
Wait, should we measure it
But
now?
I don't think it's... Yeah, we'll measure it now. Alright, so charging me in the rear. So -4 to me. Your veterans, so it's -5 to me. You've got your general attached, so it's -6 to me. Yeah, okay, not great. I got 5.
I'm going to do my 1, 2, so I have 8.
Okay, you win, but I'm on -5, so I'm on 0. So you've wiped out that battalion. See how far your charge on is, Charlie. You get 3d6.
I've gone in.
Another 10. You
I think I've
probably then also reach that other French battalion.
So let's see who gets the... because I'm both charging in.
Well, yeah, you will with the cavalry as well. So we'll do this charge first by the infantry.
If they do fall back, they'll hit the cavalry.
I get 10 actually.
I get 8.
Okay, so I will win that first one, but you were charging, so
I just bounce back.
you just bounce back and take 1 casualty.
Or do I get to volley you?
No, you don't get to volley me.
You stand and volley.
You charged me.
It's a stand and volley.
No, you charged me.
No, remember there's one you did stand and volley.
No, you charged me, so I fired at you and missed.
No, but well, the charge results are stand and volley.
Yeah, it's not. It's -4. You retire, but you do then. You have wiped out that battalion. You've wiped out that battalion. You can charge that one in the rear with your charge on result. So that'll be at -5 to me because I'm in the rear and I've got 6 casualties. So -5. Oh, I roll an 8.
I roll an 8.
You're an 8. You win by 5.
You get wiped
Not
out.
quite. No, it's not quite a wipeout. You melee with a land. I melee unformed. Alright, so we haven't taken the figures off, but Charlie's cavalry, being elite and veterans and attacking this brigade from the rear, has caused chaos. All 3 of those French battalions have been either hit directly or hit by charge-on charges, and all have been dispersed. So Charlie has broken the 2nd Brigade on this flank, and I can't see any prospect of the French being able to deploy their infantry sufficiently far to capture this building or capture that road, never mind capture the 3rd objective behind the elite guard on the other flank.
And also, even if that did happen, I could just turn on my heavy cavalry and hit your light cavalry in the flank and
break another brigade. So, another glorious victory for the British, for Charlie, well done. Another sad indictment on my ability to command the French. I did try and go for the combined arms this time, using the artillery to support the attack in the centre, but could not get those hussars and that infantry brigade to both be on assault orders on the same turn, so they hung around a long time there. On the right hand side, my defensive formation for the French worked really, really well, and I did drive off the guard and veteran KGL battalion, so that was a real victory on the right flank for the French.
very lucky victory.
But on the left, it really all swung when
It was
my
just like
dragoons.
a chain route.
Yeah, it was a chain route, and Charlie, or the British, I was playing the British at the time, beat the French dragoons in what was a 50-50 combat, and they beat both of the dragoons and drove the French dragoons off the table.
Even with the British commander having a really bad cold, it's still okay.
Even with a cold-filled British commander, they pulled off a victory. All right, thanks very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed the battle. We'll just take a final look. 95th Rifles still firmly in possession of that building. All these French infantry in the centre wiped out by the victorious charging British heavy dragoons, and gone through the meat grinder of defensive British fire there. Was a great position for the British artillery battery in the flank of that building. And Charlie hung on in the centre, really didn't face any pressure in the centre. And on the right flank, a great victory for these French raw battalions, driving off the British Guard and the KGL, but not nearly enough to swing the battle. Alright guys, see you again next time for another game of Napoleonics with JP and Charlie. Cheers!